Okay, let's jump right in. We're going to unpack this incredible moment in history when one man's vision of light just completely changed architecture forever.
We're talking about the birth of the Gothic style. And it all starts in one place, the Abbey of Saint Denis, just north of Paris in the early 12th century.
And Saint Denis wasn't just any church, right?
Oh, not at all.
Yeah.
You have to think of it as the spiritual and political heart of France. It was the traditional burial place for French kings and queens.
So basically the most important church in the entire kingdom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But by the 1100s, it had a huge problem. The old building, the Romanesque one, was just way too small.
Too popular for its own good.
Exactly. Pilgrims were flooding in to see the relics and the royal tombs, and it was becoming, dangerously overcrowded.
And this is where Abbot Suger steps in.
Yes. And Suger wasn't just a church leader. He was, a major political player. He was a close friend, an advisor, basically the right-hand man to the kings of France.
Which gave him access to, well, royal funding.
The kind of funding you need for a project this massive. His vision wasn't just to make the church bigger. He wanted to transform it into a representation of heaven on earth.
A completely new experience. And he starts with the front, the west facade, and then moves to the most sacred part, the east end.
In his entire philosophy, the whole idea revolved around one single element.
Light. He was obsessed with light.
Totally. For Sugar, bright light wasn't just for seeing. He believed it was the literal presence of God.
Yeah.
That it could, purify your mind and lift you up spiritually.
Which is such a huge contrast to what came before, the Romanesque style.
Oh, a complete 180. Romanesque churches are defined by their thick, heavy walls and tiny windows. They're dark, they're massive, they feel very anchored to the ground.
Almost like fortresses.
Right. Sugar wanted the opposite. He wanted the walls to feel like they weren't even there, to just dissolve into light. He actually had a name for it, lux nova.
New light in Latin.
Exactly. And he achieved this by using windows that were way, way bigger than anyone had ever dared to build before. He wanted sunlight to just pour into the building.
But that creates a massive engineering problem, doesn't it? Stone is heavy. You can't just punch huge holes in the walls that are holding up the roof.
You can't. The whole thing would just collapse.
Yeah.
So to make his vision of Lux Nova a reality, they had to invent a whole new way of building.
And this is where the real genius comes in. It boils down to two huge structural game changers. The first one is the pointed arch.
Right. So if you look at older Roman-style buildings, they use a rounded arch. The problem with a round arch is the physics of it. It pushes the weight of the roof not just down, but also out to the sides.
So the walls have to be super thick to stop from being pushed over.
Precisely. That's why Romanesque churches are so bulky. But the pointed arch is brilliant because it takes that same weight and channels it almost straight down.
Vertically.
Vertically. All that force goes directly into the columns and the piers below. The walls don't have to fight that outward push anymore.
And that means you can build way higher.
So much higher. It gives you that soaring upward feeling that we associate with Gothic cathedrals.
And it was more flexible too, right?
Yeah, that's another key point. You could have arches of different widths, say, for a main aisle and a side aisle, but have them all reach the same height. It allowed for much more complex and interesting floor plans.
Okay, so the pointed arch solves one problem, but you still have the ceiling. A giant solid stone roof is still incredibly heavy.
It is, and that's where the second breakthrough comes in, rib vaulting.
Instead of a solid stone ceiling, like a tunnel.
Right, which is called a barrel vault. Instead of that, they basically built a stone skeleton first.
A skeleton.
Yeah, they construct a framework of these thin stone arches or ribs that crisscross the ceiling. Those ribs are the only parts that are truly load-bearing.
Okay, so the ribs do all the heavy lifting.
Exactly. And then the space in between the ribs, the webbing, could be filled in with much thinner, lighter stone panels.
So the whole ceiling becomes dramatically lighter.
Dramatically. And if your ceiling is lighter, you don't need those massive, thick walls to hold it up.
And if you don't need thick walls,
you can put in massive windows. Rib vaulting is what made Lux Nova physically possible. It's this perfect marriage of engineering and art. You get these beautiful geometric patterns on the ceiling that also happen to be incredibly efficient.
So with these new tools, the pointed arch and the rib vault Sugar could completely redesign the inside of the church.
Especially at the east end, around the main altar, there's a walkway there called the ambulatory.
The path that let pilgrims walk around to see all the different chapels and relics without disturbing the main service.
Right. And in the old churches, each of those little chapels was its own separate dark room with thick walls between them.
And Sugar just knocked them down.
He essentially did. He replaced those thick dividing walls with a series of slim, elegant columns. It created this open, flowing space. You could move around freely and still feel connected to the entire church. It felt unified.
And those columns are so different, not the big, chunky pillars you see in older buildings.
No, they're incredibly slender. Sometimes they're even designed to look like a bundle of reeds reaching up to the ceiling. They're strong, but they look almost weightless.
They keep your line of sight open.
Mm-hmm. They draw your eyes up, always up, contributing to that whole feeling of verticality.
And now with all that open wall space, he could finally install the ultimate expression of his vision.
The stained glass windows.
Which weren't just decoration. They were, they were like giant comic books for a population that mostly couldn't read.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
They told stories from the Bible, the lives of saints. It was a visual education.
And the quality of the glass at Saint Denis was famous.
Legendary. Suger spared no expense. He sourced the best materials, and those deep, rich blues and reds became a signature of early Gothic style.
So the light streaming in wasn't just white sunlight anymore?
No, it was transformed. It became this magical, colored light that painted moving stories across the stone floors and walls.
So beyond the structure, everything in the design had a deeper meaning. It was all symbolism.
Absolutely. The incredible height was meant to literally draw your eyes and your soul toward heaven.
And the use of geometry.
That reflected the idea of God's perfect divine order in the universe. The whole building was meant to be a kind of microcosm of creation.
A physical version of the heavenly Jerusalem from the Bible.
That was the goal, to give you a little taste of paradise right here on earth.
But building something like this, the sheer logistics must have been unbelievable.
Oh, it's hard to even comprehend today. They needed massive amounts of high-quality limestone, which had to be quarried miles away.
And then dragged to the site by oxen over, what, medieval roads?
For weeks, yes. Thousands and thousands of stone blocks. Then they had to lift them hundreds of feet in the air using these enormous wooden cranes.
Powered by people walking in giant wheels, like hamsters.
Pretty much. And the cost was enormous. You had thousands of specialized workers, masons, carpenters, glassmakers on site for years. It was an economic undertaking on the scale of a military campaign.
Which, again, is only possible because Suger had the king's backing.
Exactly. That political power was the key.
And what was the impact when it was done?
It was immediate and revolutionary. As soon as other architects and patrons saw what Suger had done at Saint Denis, they knew they were looking at the future.
So the ideas spread.
They spread like wildfire. Within a few decades, you see these same principles. The pointed arches, the rib vaults, the huge windows popping up in Chartres, in Reims, and of course at Notre Dame in Paris.
It really was the start of a whole new era that would last for centuries.
It was. Saint Denis is that crucial turning point. Every Gothic cathedral that came after owes a fundamental debt to the ideas that were first tested there.
It's just amazing to think about how their creative ambition, to solve these really complex engineering problems, was all in the service of a spiritual vision.
It really is. That search for beauty and a connection to the divine ended up completely changing the world of architecture forever.
See you next time.